Hello, everybody, and welcome to our H1Z1 Z2 wrap-up show right here on Infection Podcast. Hope everybody's having a good afternoon. My name is Nick Craig, at Nicholas M. Craig is my Twitter. InfectionPodcast.com is our website. Joining me, Brian Aldridge, for it's not really
Special
Infection
edition
Podcast because we're not recording it, but we are recording it, but it's not a podcast. We're just doing the wrap-up show here on Twitch and on YouTube. So hope everybody's having a good afternoon. We just got finished watching the H1Z1 Z2 map stream. And I honestly, Brian, just to start this off, and if anybody's watching Infection in the next few days, it's going to be a recap of this. We were totally wrong. There is, there's nothing else I can say, but I was 100% wrong.
Yeah, they were a lot farther along than I expected. I mean, I pretty much said, man, they barely finished terrain. I understand that they did have sections of buildings that they placed in, but there's a lot of stuff on the map that took some time to put in.
Yeah,
it's not like they put it in the last week.
No.
This is something they've been working on for months, and you can tell that they've been working. There's a lot of polish missing, which you'll see, but the structures are there. The things are there. Now they just got to go through and do a cleanup and start making it look nice.
Yeah, so that's what we've got on the plate here. Here are a few things that are just kind of some recap stuff. So here's some Z2 info. First thing here being that the Z2 map is going to be a 10 kilometer by 10 kilometer map. The old map, Z1, was 8 by 8 with a 6 by 6 playable area, and the new one is a 10 by 10 with an 8K playable area. So you're getting 2 kilometers more playable space on Z2. The next thing, it's coming to the test servers today. It's only noon out on the West Coast, so they've still got a decent chunk of the workday left to get this server out, but they did say it was coming to the test servers today.
And this is just for King of the Kill, and they did state that Just Survive will not be seeing this in the foreseeable future, which when they say foreseeable future, that means it's going to be a while.
Exactly.
It's going to be a long time.
The main city, Pleasant Valley, is double the size of PV in Z1. And the last thing is there are 61 points of interest on this map, according to them. And here's one quick little example of the new Pleasant Valley compared to the old one kind of overlapped on top of each other. So you can see the sheer size of that map. It is about double the size of Pleasant Valley. Now, Brian, let's bring people right up into the map because I'm not sure a lot of people have seen the map thus far. Here it is with labels. And this is thanks to our friends over at H1Z1DB that were able to hook us up with this map render. So we've got 4 cities on the map. 3 were already in the map. The new one is Harris's Bluff, and it's up here in the northwestern corner of the map. And it's a pretty decent-sized city. It's similarly placed to where PV was beforehand. Now, the main thing here, Brian, is the massive size of Pleasant Valley in this new map. It is more than double the size of Pleasant Valley and its surrounding areas on Z1. So this is a much, much bigger just main city. It's double the size of what we have right now.
Now, there is a lot of park area. So this is something that, depending on what they kind of do with the park area too, if they make it to where the park area is still playable, that'll add a lot to this map. If it's a big dead open area in the middle, I think, it's going to be a little bit misconstrued as far as the size. Like it's harder to tell, but if they can really make that playable area in the center, because they have that rail that goes around the whole outside of the city. Yep. It's in like a donut, and they had said it's kind of like a donut shape, and then they have this big center area that's just a huge park. And if they can make that to where it just looks really cool and like you work your way through it and there's things to hide behind and actually becomes a part of the fighting gameplay, this is a huge amount of gameplay area. If like the smoke comes down to that in a King of the Kill, this is a huge play area.
Yeah, and here is actually that that rail system that you're talking about. They were actually able to drive the Jeep up on there. So that's fantastic news for H1Z1 and in this case King of the Kill. Now, real quickly here on the map, let's just wrap this up. Taquito, they changed the name and they changed the spelling
and the
completely.
spelling of the actual.
So
Taquito
it's no
word.
longer Rancho. It's no longer Rancho Taquito. It's Taquito. Not Taquito, nothing. It's Taquito.
No, yeah, it used to have a Q in it, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, it did. So Taquito is up here. It's to the northeast of the new Pleasant Valley. And then all the way down here in the south is Cranberry. Now, taking a wide view at this map, it's hard to see all of the different areas. So we'll highlight a few of them over the next this duration of the live stream, and then of course the dam is up here, which is blatantly obvious by the the sheer amount of water. But I guess, Brian, we can start off with initial impressions. What you were expecting going into this stream, and how are you feeling coming out of the live stream? So I'll let you take it away.
Okay, well, we had an opportunity to see this map a little bit, yesterday before, and kind of see the overall vastness of it, right? So I had a little bit of an expectation. I'm sure people that had no clue what was coming were extremely surprised just to see that there's just things throughout the map. It's no longer a pocket of something's right here, a pocket of something there. You actually have throughout the whole map subdivisions that aren't following a couple of horizontal or vertical roads. The map is much more free flowing. It's something where you have kind of winding roads. It's not just if you think of Z1's map, you've got one that just goes north and south on the left-hand side of the map. And then, it's like very square, the way that the main road works.
Yeah. So this is Z1. And that's what it is. You've got a straight road here, a little bend in the road here, but then it goes straight up here. It's straight across the top. It's down here, and then there's a little curve to connect it. That's pretty much the road system on Z1.
I mean, and if you look at the new one, they've got winding roads that go around the terrain. It seems like before they kind of placed mountains outside of the roads rather than placing the mountains and then having the roads go around those. They've actually worked the roads around natural terrain to make it feel how it would be in an actual town or on an actual map. It freely flows throughout, and it kind of gives you that, well, I'm not just going to sit here and just drive straight for the next 2-3 minutes to get across this part of the map. You're winding around, and you'll see houses just off to the side. You'll see little roads that go off to the side. So they did a lot better job of dispersing everything very evenly, and that's the thing I noticed that's going to make a big difference, because when we do King of the Kills, the thing is we're spawning above the mountain. Okay, now we're not going to get a good drop. We're going to be second to wherever we're going, or we got to do a lot of running. Now, if you're spawned what would be considered out in the middle of nowhere, there's probably still going to be some houses and buildings there that you'll be able to go and at least get geared up. So I think it gives a lot better opportunity for even gameplay. Plus, everything is much more evenly split. Before, when you would get the gas coming into the town, you'd be like, all right, is this on the north side of the mountain? Is it on the south side of the mountain? It'd be kind of a gamble. And maybe you'd be having to trek over it. Now, as long as you can spawn kind of towards the middle, but you have an even chance of being able to get to any of the cities. So any of the cities could be the final zone for the smoke, and it's not going to be that much of a problem to get there. I mean, it's just running, but you're not going to be cut off and not able to get over a mountain or have a certain place that you have to go through. So I think it's a lot better map for King of the Kill. And then maybe, once they get it to where these cities are more adapted to the shooting from building to building, and they get a lot of the debris, like cars and everything in there, I think that'll really add to, it seems really big right now. The roads seem huge, but I think if you are to add a lot of those broken down cars and vehicles in there, I think that'll make a big difference.
So I guess the question I have for you, Brian, is what you were expecting. Did their stream either meet or exceed or not exceed your expectations on what you thought Z2 would have been prior? Because honestly, this was kind of a bombshell.
Before we saw it, like, what did I expect before?
Yes, before you saw anything about Z2, you just heard, hey, there's going to be a live stream next Friday about, because by the way, this was brought on like 4 days ago. Like, we went from 0 to 100 in 3 or 4 days. We went from not even knowing the Z2 was in the works to, holy hell, here is Z2. It's, for all intents and purposes, playable.
They very much put it out like, oh, here's some terrain we're working on. Here's some mountains. up until very recently, they didn't show any buildings. And I don't know if it's because they had them all totally broken off into their, for working on them in their own little zones and nothing was brought together. But then all of a sudden they started showing, like here's the Bumjik farm area and here's all these things. So I knew that those areas were going to be fairly done. And I wasn't sure if they were just kind of making sure those were done for pictures so they could say, hey, look what we're working on. But I was very surprised that they have all this other stuff, like all these other little houses and subdivisions everywhere.
Yeah,
that I was not expecting because that is very time consuming. And so they weren't just working on Bumjik farms and they weren't just working on the main city. Like they've been putting things throughout the whole map this, for a while, it seems like. So that's what surprised me most. I was not expecting, to have everything spread out so much and actually have stuff out there.
Yeah, so I've kind of got the same ideas here that Brian do. I was, like I said, we've seen the images. We've seen vines from Sebastian of camps with kayaks and farms. We saw a few screenshots a couple of weeks ago. Those were out, but I was not expecting subdivisions and, I mean, there's apple orchards for. None of that stuff even exists in the current game. The dam is huge, and we'll cover a lot of this stuff. But they totally, I think blew away everybody's expectations because I think a lot of people were going into Z2 thinking, all right, it's going to be like Z1, but it's going to be a little more polished. This is nothing like Z1. The city is double the size of the one in Z1. It's double the size of the city. Just the one city. And Pleasant Valley in the current map is just a little bit bigger than Taquito and Cranberry in the current map. So your smallest city is almost the size of the Cranberry, which is the largest city in the game right now. So,
and it's much more realistic of a layout because if you look at how Pleasant Valley was before, it had to where in the middle of the city there was like a ledge of things were up here and then there was a big drop off and then you had things down here. That's generally not how cities are. Usually a city is going to be built on a flat area and kind of spread out, or it's going to be adapted. So this is a much more realistic layout of how a city would look. It gives them a lot more room. They actually have large buildings. The old Pleasant Valley had a lot of the same kind of shops that were just repeated
None of these
over and
buildings
over again.
All of these buildings are different. Everything is unique.
Yeah, and so they've gone through here and they put a unique facade, even if they do have repeat buildings, they've gone through and done unique textures on the front enough to make it to where like, okay, this doesn't look like that same one just repeated and copied and pasted over here. So that was a really good job. And then one thing they did announce in this stream that I didn't know they were working on was doing the destructible walls.
Yeah, actually, hold on. I have an image of that right here. So this is it's kind of like Battlefield where like a wall can be destroyed. If you're trapped in a room, you could potentially break down the wall.
I don't know if this is going to be on every single wall or if maybe there's going to be a slight crack in the wall that kind of tells you that this is one that is possible to do. I would assume they would do it that way. It's not going to be like the whole thing is destructible. That's just not realistic in their engine. But I wouldn't be surprised if you see a slight crack in the wall. That means, okay, that's a wall that you're able to throw a grenade at or do something to knock it down. Yeah. And it creates a new path to the other side.
Yeah. So that's that. Now, we can kind of run through these quick because I'd rather show some of the new stuff that we have. But they did release 13 screenshots on their website just a few days ago in anticipation of Z2's live stream. So here are a few of them. We'll run through a few for these quick. This just looks like a campground. There's really nothing except that truck is new. I've never seen that truck in game, but this is just kind of a picnic campground that they've got going on here. The next one is some type of there's a camper or like an RV, a barn, and a bunch of trees. So somebody is cutting down these trees there.
It looks like a little logging camp.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, if you look, there's a logging truck up there, so it's a little logging camp up in the mountain, which is a new concept. They haven't done that before.
Exactly.
As well.
The next one here is the subdivisions, which we'll show a little bit later. You can see everything has got fences. There's shrubbery in front of the houses, which is big, by the way. I don't think people are realizing that. Shrubs in front of these houses is going to give you the opportunity to hide in front of a house and spring out and shoot people. That's pretty big. The next thing here,
And you want to be able to duck behind things as you're going through these, working your way through these. Just being able to duck in and out of cover makes a big difference in how game's played.
Exactly. I agree 100%. The next thing here is there's some silos out in the distance, some hay bales, and a mountain with a nice fog effect that looks pretty nice. Nothing really too unique in that picture there. Next one is what appears to be some type of barn farmhouse with some zombies just roaming around in front of them. And again, some more
Now, in the
silos.
stream today, I didn't see any zombies. So I think because
remember, it was King of the Kill.
It's King of the Kill.
Yeah,
exactly. They didn't have those sort of things, but this is something that internally, they can turn on. So yeah, I mean, there will be maybe they have don't they? I think they still will have a King of the Kill with zombies in it, right?
Yeah, they should, I would think.
And so if they do, then you'll have an opportunity to see the zombies in this map as well.
Exactly. Next thing here is what we're calling Romero's. It doesn't say Romero's, but it's some type of grocery utility
I think
store.
they just don't have the facade on there at the moment.
So that's that with parking lots, which we've got some stuff on later. Next thing here, this is Pleasant Valley. This is the main city. This is overlooking from a distance. You're looking over the elevated rail system and then into the city, and you can see the trees in the distance. You can see the high-rise buildings that are there, and again, a nice sunset on that makes it look nice. So this is my favorite picture out of all of the ones they've uploaded. This one right here. It shows the size of the city. I mean, this is a full elevated train system in this city. So that's really important there.
Well, and they've just done so much of a better job with the trees in this map. I know that, like Nisco, he would constantly complain about the trees. And this is something that in the Northwest where this takes place, this is more of how it would look in kind of the Northwest, more towards the West Coast.
Before it was a barren wasteland. There was nothing. It was just a few trees kind of hugged together.
So they actually have things that are breaking up the terrain to where just don't see across to the map. You can actually, it looks like the map will feel even bigger just because these trees are so evenly dispersed.
Exactly. Next up here is what appears to be, again, some type of picnic area with little, little structures that tables are under.
Look, it's picnic campground. Well, not a campground, but a public picnic area.
Exactly, something like that. Then the next thing here, this is another really good one. It shows that there are some trees, but it's not a rainforest where there's actually Gadlaw's right. That's the farmers market that they showed at the end of the stream. That is the farmers market. But this screenshot really shows that. Here's the thing: there's a very fine line between having too many trees and not having enough trees. If they released this and there were trees every square inch and it looked like a rainforest, it would be impossible to kill anybody because you couldn't see them. But this is the right balance. Yeah. There's big trees that you could use as cover and that kind of spread out the landscape. But there needs to be open space. I mean, if you drive around your city or town, unless you live in New York City or some major metropolitan area, there are areas where it's just fields. And there really isn't a whole lot there. So, in my opinion, we haven't seen a whole lot of top-down gameplay yet. We saw a little bit, and we can show you that with the live stream. But for the most part, it looks like they balance that very, very well, at least from the video that we see. This is a good example of that. And
it'll be interesting to see as they kind of fill in the map more if they add, what else they add, because they're putting things in there. Like you can see to the right, there's some things placed in that picture, but and then also to the left, you can see I don't know if that's a camper off in the back distance. There still are things even out in this empty area. There's still things there, and that's something that you didn't have in the old map. Either you were where things were going to be, or you were in the middle of nowhere.
Exactly.
Maybe there was a house out just all by itself. Now it seems like they've got, other than little campgrounds, how it was before, they actually just have stuff that's placed around that you can find.
Exactly, which is a big deal. I got a few more here just to finish it up. This is some type of farm area. There's some silos and just a trailer and some barrels. Nothing too crazy there. Again, here this is the industrial part of Pleasant Valley, which we can show you, which we'll show you in the stream. But this is the industrial park of it, and I think Landgun said that this is how a city realistically is. There's the inner city with all of the businesses and the apartments and everything else, and then there are in some cases industrial parks and whatever on the outside, and it makes sense. They've got a train running to the industrial park, which totally makes sense. That's exactly what would be happening in real life. So. This is
and this is something that, I mean, if you think of how the original Pleasant Valley was, they tried to kind of capture this with a couple of different buildings that were to the west side, right? Yeah. And so they had a slight industrial area, but then it instantly went to the police station.
Yeah, there was like 6 or 7,
and it went instantly to the there were shops. Then and it just there wasn't a flow to it like this. Like this is the industrial area, and you drive through the industrial area. It's not 20 feet of on the left and right. Okay, here's the industrial area. Now we're into the middle of the city. Exactly. This is a much bigger realistic feeling for when you're driving from one section to the other.
Yeah, and I think this is this is the industrial park that's right up here to the left and right. So it's a much larger industrial area than we have at any point in the map right now. I mean, this was the equivalent of the entire industrial park in Pleasant Valley, and this is just one little
that
area
one little square.
And then you can see the other thing in here is those new trailers. But this is a very large area, and the industrial park typically didn't tend to have a whole lot of loot. So I hope they fix that a little bit. But that's the industrial. And the other quick thing to note is how wide the roads are. This is a 5-lane road with a median. It's 2 lanes going each way, and then some type of median. That's a big road.
The roads are huge, and this is where, as I said before, I think it's going to really be important that they disperse broken down cars and things throughout these roads just to kind of break this up. Because if you look, that is a huge open area to not have anything in it. If they kind of place those objects for filler correctly on this, it'll be a really nice feeling. Plus, people won't just be flying through with cars.
Exactly.
They'll have to kind of weave around a few things or go a little bit slower, which makes more sense. Like I wouldn't expect to go into a city and just see it totally barren like this.
Exactly. So, and I would imagine that's stuff they're working on. Last thing here is just another picture from what appears to be, I can't really tell, but it could be Pleasant Valley. It could not be. Sidewalk with tables out front with umbrellas. That's new. The sidewalks normally are just, before the sidewalks were just kind of, there was like trash cans and stuff, but this is like there's real stuff here in the sidewalk. This is realistically what a downtown area would look like. It would have shops and buildings with tables and umbrellas.
Yeah, there's a restaurant where people would be sitting outside.
Exactly. It would be cool maybe to see some like broad iron fence around it or whatever like you would see. But this is the step in the right direction, and we're seeing that on Z2. And then the last image here is, again, just another city image. There's some more umbrellas, some newspaper stands. Now, this is what you're talking about. Look at all the cars and debris in here. Just in this image,
that might be their kind of test area of starting to fill that in.
I can count to 5 or 6 just from this small image, which is what I see here. So that's really, really good news. So those are the screenshots that they released beforehand. And I have one other image I want to show. And this is something I did, and it's not 100% accurate, but this is the Z1 versus Z2 points of interest. The Z1 is on the left, and I kind of just highlighted points of interest with a yellow dot. And you can compare that to the Z2, which they said will have 61 points of interest, which I don't know how they count those points of interests, but they said 61.
Did they say 61? I thought it was, that's right.
Yeah, so...
I think they're counting points of interest as even like the campgrounds.
Which is
a subdivision is a point of interest. A campground is a point of interest. So...
Yeah, exactly.
But this kind of shows you these are larger points of interest that we highlighted on here. So if you take a look at this, it's much, you can really see how how much more spread out it is in Z2.
Yeah.
Just like we were talking about Z1, like there was a main big area, kind of stuff to the lower right on the other side of the mountain, kind of stuff to the lower left on the other side of the mountain, and then 3 spots spread out along the top. This one, no matter where you land, except for maybe to the east where there's a slight mountain east of Pleasant Valley, everything is pretty evenly distributed. Like if you did spawn on that area, you could go north, you could go south on the east part. Even if you spawn north, kind of in that dead area at Pleasant Valley, you could still say, okay, do I want to try to go down to Pleasant Valley, or do I want to go to these small places up above? So there still are things there.
Yeah.
So that's a much better, and I think it'll work out a lot better for King of the Kill.
Totally, because Brian, we played King of the Kill Thursday night, and we kept spawning in the middle of nowhere.
We had like 5 spawns right above the mountain.
Yeah, and then we just spawned above the mountain every single time, and there's nothing up there. So the mountain is gone, the radio tower is not. There's a few other screenshots I took that we can just run through quick. So that was the exploding wall we talked about. The next one is the campers. They are much larger, actually. They're almost, I would say, they probably expanded them probably a quarter, but they're much larger, they're taller, and they're a little bit bigger. So that's good news for that.
Personally, I think the doors are a little bit too big on them because it makes them seem out of proportion. But I think that the size of the actual campers is not bad. I think the problem is they scaled it up, and they scaled up the door with. I know they're trying to have wide doors for camera angles, but I think they'll probably play with that a little bit as they fix their cameras.
Yeah, but the campers, I'm really happy with. Besides, know, the proportion issue that there might be. Next one here is the dam, and I can just say dam. This thing is huge, Brian. Like,
yeah.
We've got some video, but this thing is, you can't even, like on the current dam, if you stand at the bottom, you can almost see over the top and see stuff on the other side. This thing is massive. And they really, really plan this dam out well. There's a lot of stuff going on there. And then you can see actually the box of Destiny up in the mountain in the back of the distance there. The next thing is trees. This is an apple orchard area that they have in here. And there's 2 of, I don't know if they're both apple, but there's 2 different of these orchard areas where there's a house on it and then a bunch of fences separating all the different trees. So that's, again, a really unique area. That doesn't exist in the game right now. There is not a collection of trees that aren't just random, which these are placed there and have a purpose.
And I think they've totally redone how they do trees in the new map. So they started using an industry software that's much better at making trees compared to because they haven't really changed trees since they released. I mean, a year and a half ago when they released, we have the exact same trees as what we have on Z1. And so I think that that's something where now they've got some better software that makes a lot more variation in trees. So that is adding a lot to this map, just the variety of the trees and the way that the leaves are spread out, how big they are. And they're taking advantage of it. You might as well throw, like, it's not hurting them to throw an orchard in here, and it gives you that visual variety that's really nice to play. Yeah,
I agree 100%. The next one here is actually the parking lot. This one actually says Zims. So this is the parking lot, but this is not the current parking lot was just a wide open space. There was like a few lamp posts but then just nothing else. This has got the fences in there, and it's going to have painted lines, and there's broken down cars, and there's trees that are overgrown, and there's grass that's overgrown, stuff that you would actually see.
Now, in this, do you think they're gonna put in concrete and all, or asphalt in here? I mean,
yeah, I would
think they would. I mean, this type of a store would. I assuming what they're going to do is put in asphalt, maybe have kind of raised, areas with grass kind of going around, and start filling that in. I think this is just a first pass to kind of separate things out.
Yeah. And then another thing here is the trucks. They've added this new truck, and there's a lot of them. These like truck parks. So nothing too crazy, but it's just some trucks. A new object, and these are pretty big objects too that will take up space, and you could hide and take cover behind. So that's good stuff as well.
And you have to imagine here the road, because that brown area is where the road is going to be. So these are lined up on a road.
Exactly.
And I think that what they were saying is that some of these roads are actually below. They're right below the dirt.
Yeah, they said the terrain is rendering before it. Yeah, exactly.
Yep, and so that may be something that quickly they can adjust.
Yeah, so that's good stuff as well. And then the last one here is actually the radio tower, which they added in, and it's not on a huge mountain anymore, but there is still a radio tower, which is good news. So there's that.
Because that's supposed to play into some of the lore later. I mean, they've talked about having survivor radio and all this, and there is power. There's persistent power now. It's not something that they're anything kind of quest-like with. They have a lot of street lamps and things like that that are going to be powered. So there would be no excuse for them to not have some form of basic radio.
Yep. And then one final one here is the houses. And these houses are much larger in terms of like before, like the hallways were all narrow and there was pretty much like in this area, you could totally have a gunfight that doesn't, in the current houses.
In the one that was with this, this is the one where you'd go up the stairs, and you had one hallway.
Yeah.
Straight through.
And there was
so it's
three
pretty much
doors.
That's where you would kill everybody, is right in that hallway.
Exactly.
Now you could duck into a room, and maybe throw a grenade through the corner or throw a grenade into the room. Like there's going to be more of a gun battle that could happen in this type of a building.
Yeah, and actually I think I've got video of this house. Video's too long to go through, but oh yeah, here it is actually. So here is the actual house in action, and it's a circular flow. So instead of being able to camp, it's a circular flow. There's doors. There's 1, 2, 3. There's 3 doors, 3 different entrance points, and it's a circle. So that means you can't just sit in one area. And this is the upstairs.
And you
view.
can't shoot from one door to the other. Like in a lot of these houses that are in Z1.
Yeah.
If you're standing at the back door, you're staring right at the front door, so you can just shoot straight through. So this one, you can actually kind of run around and try to get away from somebody and sneak out a back door.
Exactly. So that's really big stuff as well. And the other thing they noted is that there's no longer that middle platform. The stairs just go up, because before you could sit on that middle platform and shoot people downstairs.
Shoot anybody coming up. Yeah.
Exactly. Now you can't do that. So that's good news as well. That was all of the. Those are all the images and stuff I grabbed beforehand, but we've got the whole video that we can go through here, Brian. I took some notes. So the first big one, of course, is what you talked about. Is there's no more mountain. There's no more huge mountain that is impossible to scale.
It's not a big open dead space.
Exactly, because it was just useless space. And I have a feeling they put the mountain in there because they needed space.
They needed to fill.
Exactly, they needed to fill stuff up. The walls were destroyed. We talked about that. Now there is some lore. They're talking about a hydro dam, which we know there's a dam, but they mentioned that the reason the lights are on is because of the hydro dam. So could this be playing into your story ideas that you've had? What do you think? Yeah,
I mean, this is something where I've really been pushing for them to go through and say, all right, well, supply power and make it an objective. I don't think it's going to be an objective in King of the Kill, of course. And maybe that's why it's just always on. But the fact that they're running these power to these lights and doing all these things, I think you could really turn it into a server-wide objective, which would make this game for survival much more fun. They have the dam, they've got the radio tower, they've got a little more variety of things that you could make objectives. And so if they start to take advantage of that, it's going to be a lot of programming on their side to do. But I think that in the end, for people that are in survival, maybe take advantage of the apple orchard. Maybe have it be something to where if you do something right, kind of like you can grow corn right now, maybe you can harvest some apples. Or just take advantage of what they're making, and really use it. And because it's all there now. Like they've acknowledged we are having power. There is hydro. And they're fitting it in their lore. They said, well, it would make sense to have hydro because it would keep running even after the world collapsed. So
because there's still water. I mean, it's hydropower. It's as long as there's flowing water, should.
Now they did say that there's not going to be swimmable water, and I don't know that they ever will.
No, I'm not sure they will. And I'm going to give them credit. So if it's the engine or something else, there's some reason that they can't have water. I'm not sure if it's a technical reason or whatever
they'd
else.
have to program in the swimming and everything. So I think that's just a lot of stuff that they don't really care about at the moment. So first of all, I mean, there are some other aspects to it as far as, maybe with them going underwater and it looking correct. But as far as the swimming aspect, they'd have to do all the animations for swimming. They'd have to do a number of things in the engine to make it so that when you get in the water, it's like, okay, now you can swim. Other engines do it fairly easily. For them, they have to all write it by hand. So I think their priorities are just in other areas to where it's like, is it really worth it to make? I mean, why not add fishing first?
Exactly. Now,
fishing you don't need deep water to fish. So, that'd be something that would make more sense their time to take advantage of the water.
So if you look at Z1, you can see all of the waterways are like the same. Like everything is full of water. There's no lack of water. There's no dry. If there's a river, there's water in it. In Z2, that's totally different. And you can see that right here. There is a dry part of it is dried up, and
you can see where the water always would run. Like on the map, you can see around the dam it goes down for a while, but then it dries out for a bit. Then in the southeast of the map, it kind of fills in a little bit more. You know, there's some water that's still there. It was supposed to flow left, kind of up, and then down into like a swamp area.
Yeah.
And you know that is all mostly dried out. You know, so there are pockets of water. So if let's say you have a water bottle, you have the opportunity to fill it up throughout the map, but it's not just free flowing rivers, because that's something they never have done. Is this is more of a stagnant water, just sitting there, and you know, and it's not guaranteed that you're going to be able to run up to where that river should be.
Exactly.
You know, there's areas of the rivers that don't have any water.
Don't exactly. I agree 100%. So
I didn't see anything about wells though. That's one thing they haven't mentioned. And we
No.
have to see if they did place wells throughout the map, or if they're counting on you now. Just because you don't really see wells in today. You know, I mean, like I can't think of where I could run and see a well. So maybe they decided that wells weren't really a real thing, because I haven't seen them anywhere. I haven't seen them mention it. So maybe that's why they spread out the water a little bit more through the map. So you take advantage of that.
Yeah. Now this other thing, Brian, what do you think about this picture that we're showing on stream right now? This downed
I
helicopter.
can't see your
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Downed
the
helicopter.
live feed is not going. So, now they have this down helicopter, and they also have one that's sitting as if you could fly it.
Yeah, it's a little bit.
You know, this is
right here.
They made the model for one of the game modes, so I'm glad that they're actually taking advantage of it and using it. Now, will you ever be able to fly a helicopter? Will be the interesting question.
You know,
Because I mean, look at that. Why would that helicopter not fly?
yeah, you know, I'm not totally sure on that. But I do think that in the future they possibly could. You know, I'm not sold that they won't or shouldn't have a flying thing. I don't see that something that they're.
What if it was
actively
purely
working
for
on.
transport? Like I didn't see any guns on it really.
Could be.
You know, I mean, I just don't know if they will. Like, I'd rather see them either put a dirt bike in or even a bicycle in before they try to tackle that. Because I mean, that's going to be what, one per server.
Yeah, exactly. It's not something that's going to be all over the place. So let's see. Other than that, I don't know if you took anything down. The other thing that they noted is that there's a new layout for loot in houses. So this is something that you've talked about in the past, is that, you know, if you go into this house, there's always going to be this gun every single time. It appears that they are working on fixing that, because there's going to be a new layout for loot. It's not going to be the same every time.
And making a more randomized method to it. You know, that's one thing for this game is, I know, okay, I mean, you wouldn't, let's say in King of the Kill, you drop down to the subdivision area. You didn't always know that you were going to find you're going to find an AR in this building, but you're pretty sure within one of these three buildings, there's guaranteed to be an AR and some rounds, or a shotgun and rounds. Yeah. You know, if they can get it to where it is random enough, especially in Just Survive, that's where it's really going to come down to it, because you do expect in King of the Kill to find a lot of guns. But I think that that's something that when it was so predictable in Just Survive, you'd be like, oh, okay, I went to this house. Oh, the gun hasn't respawned yet. Or I went to the top of these apartments. Oh, the sniper rifle hasn't respawned yet.
The place I think of was the shotgun in the shack by the rich neighborhoods. Every single time.
And down the hill from the church, in the rich neighborhoods in Pleasant Valley, there was we called it Shotgun Shack. You go in there, and almost every time on the way back, we'd always pass through. There's almost always some rounds and most likely a shotgun.
Yep, almost every time.
So I think that is something that if they can make it more random to where that doesn't happen, it's like, oh, I'm going to check here because this is where it usually spawns. Make it truly random. Say here's a spot that something will spawn, but actually make it random so that it is evenly dispersed throughout the map.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's a tough thing to do, and I know they've really struggled with trying to balance out loot in the past when they make a change and then they sit there and try to balance it out. So we'll see if this new method. Now, they also talked about what I call a relevant system. They call it Umbra, which is a software product. Mm-hmm. This is something that, I mean, we've talked about this a lot with Miscreated lately, saying, all right, you don't need to know what is where it was something that is at a place that you can't see or you can't interact with. That's pretty much what this Umbra system does. Let's say you're on one side of a wall. The server does not need to be telling you what's on the other side of that wall until you go over there. So this is something that will increase performance quite a bit. Also, it's good in an anti-hacking measure, because why tell someone what is on the other side of the city? If you can't see it, you don't need to know what's over there. So I think this is I don't know that this has been implemented in previous versions. This may be new for this map. I don't remember them ever mentioning Umbra before. And a lot of games use this. I mean, this is a full-fledged software product. It's not just, it's just not something that they have and only them. There's adaptations of this for Unity Engine, for Unreal Engine, and a lot of different game vendors are actually using this Umbra 3D product. So we'll have to see if they can get it implemented correctly. Square Enix uses this.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's Bethesda uses this.
Oh, that's good. Like Fallout 8 confirmed. Then I guess Bethesda.
Yeah. So as I'm saying,
that's
like
good.
This is a major product. So they're starting to take advantage in the areas where they're struggling.
See, Brian, this is the thing. Before they tried to do everything themselves. They tried to do anti-hack themselves. It didn't work. What did? They incorporated BattleEye. They probably tried to do some type of relevant system, and it just
didn't
sucked.
Work as well as they should have.
So what did they do?
Okay, so is this a hint towards them possibly adapting to another engine in the future? The fact that they're opening up like this when they wouldn't have before, because this is a lot of the reason why they're still using this engine. It's like, we built it, we want to control it. Well, I think they're starting to realize, in anti-hack, having everything in-house doesn't work.
No, and if you can just pay a company X amount of dollars, and they've already
and they do a majority of the work, and they're
exactly.
dealing with a very big user base of seeing what hacks are coming up in other games and saying, okay, well, we'll also protect against, even though it hasn't come to this game yet, we'll implement the protection so that it doesn't happen in our game.
Yeah.
Same thing with this Umbra. Like, they could have tried to continue forcing this in-house. If this product does it very well, have them do it. The same thing with their trees. They use Speed Tree now, which is what a lot of the places use because it works so well.
Yeah. And Speed Tree is just a service that places tree. You can
design and place your trees. Yeah. Okay. And so this is something they're starting to use these outside tools more, when before they would have been like, oh, we do this in house just because their engine was maybe incompatible and they had to do a lot more things in house. They couldn't just import things as they were as much. I think they're becoming more of making things fit to industry standards where they can take advantage of Umbra. They can take advantage of the anti-cheat system. Speed Tree, I guess you could just create the trees and then bring them all in, but they're letting these things come in. Maybe this is a hint that in Just Survive, maybe Just Survive will be. This gives me a little bit of hope, since they said we will not see this map in Just Survive for a long time. Maybe another engine would be. I mean, maybe. You never know.
Okay.
Very unlikely.
We'll save that for infection.
Okay, very unlikely, but it makes me think that it is possible. Maybe that's why they're holding off.
Yeah. Now the one thing, I was totally wrong. I honestly didn't think I'd see this map till 2017, late 2016 at the earliest. So I was totally wrong on that. But the one thing I do have to kind of give them a little crap about is there was a question. They put a thread on Reddit and asked, what are some stuff that you want to hear us talk about in the live stream? And a question was asked about the frame rate, and the quote was, "It's going to look pretty cool," which is the frame rate. That's not.
I don't think they want to give an honest answer at this moment, because without Umbra implemented, this is something that is not good at the moment. Like the frame rate is they're probably running it on one of their top end machines that they have. And so, they're pulling off a usable frame rate, but you saw things were rendering in late.
But again, that was because of and they said that was because of, there was a few reasons for that. First, he was teleporting around, so stuff was loading behind them. And that Umbra system was not implemented. It was not turned on for whatever reason. There may have been an issue with it, and they just said if we just turn it off, everything will load in.
So I think right now everything was kind of struggling to load in on time. But once they get the Umbra system in, he did say that he's looking at like 70 frames per second.
Yeah.
Now that is once the Umbra system is turned on a a top end
Because these are
980 style video card.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, these are the stuff they're developing on are workstations. That's what they're called. I mean, these are big power. These are just big powerhouse machines. They probably got Xeons in them. They're big bulky machines for rendering stuff.
Yep.
So that's stuff. But I just thought that the frame rate, it's going to be pretty cool. I was like, okay. And he's like,
I mean, just come out with it and say, hey, we're looking at once.
That's the only thing.
Once optimizations are performed on the engine, and we have Umbra implemented, we'll be looking at 70 to 90 frames per second. That's how they should have answered. Not that our frame rates will look pretty cool.
Yeah, that's the only thing I had an issue with the entire stream. So that's that. Now, one quick thing I forgot to mention here is there's going to be 2 new camps. There's actually going to be military camps, and there's actually going to be FEMA camps, and you can see these right here. This is totally from the DayZ playbook with these camps, these FEMA tents. This stuff was like the big stuff in DayZ, and now it is in the game. This is a big multi-layered military camp. There's the helicopter.
And these are spread throughout the map. So.
Yeah, there should be a few of these spread throughout the map. There's the helicopter in the background, but this is a huge area. It's just by itself. Like this area is massive. So there.
And I'm assuming at that water tower you'll be able to refill your bottles. So like these will become points of interest that even if you just need to get water, like you'll work your way through and fill up your water bottles here as well. So like it will get used, and I'm sure that in these places they'll have some. Maybe they'll have ammo, or they'll have guns, or they'll have some sort of anything that's a more military style. I'm thinking that this is where there's going to be kind of like what we have at the military camp right now.
Exactly.
And maybe you can get it out of, because you're not likely going to see military helmets and things in houses like you do right now.
Yeah, as you should.
Like, you shouldn't see a helmet inside of someone's house. Maybe a motorcycle helmet. Maybe they'll get a little bit better spread out of that type of gear.
Yeah. So other than that, there's a few other things. They said something big which didn't seem to go over well or anything. That you will now be able to crouch and shoot guns over objects, which is something you currently really can't do, and that's really big.
The vehicles. Mechanic. Yeah, the vehicles were at a certain height to where when you would crouch, like you would shoot into the vehicle. So, but your head would still poke out the top when you're crouched down. So, maybe they're trying to make it so that, and I don't know how they're doing this, whether they're making something shorter, or maybe they're making your crouch not so low, but they're doing something. So,
which is great.
Yeah, I mean, and that's more how you would want it to be, because depending on what side of a vehicle you're on, like you could be at a huge disadvantage. You found yourself having to run around the whole vehicle or be totally upright to be able to go. So we'll see what they do. I mean, if they can pull this off, it'll make that gunplay just much smoother.
Now, another thing that they noted was that pretty much any building that you're allowed to go into will have stairs either on the outside as a catwalk or internally as a stairwell shaft that will allow you to get to the roof. So that really, because right now, if you look at like a city like Cranberry, there's 3 apartment buildings on the northwestern edge of the city, and I think those are the only buildings you can get to the roofs on. Is those
without using some form of a glitch?
Yeah, I mean, you can maybe jump on the back of a house, but like an actual building that you can get onto the roof of, those 3 apartment buildings, I think, are the only thing in Cranberry on Z1. So they said any building that you can get into should have catwalks on the outside or an internal stairwell shaft that will allow you to get to the roof, which is great for snipers. And it's really going to make you kind of have to watch out when you go into cities now, because there really could be people on the roofs almost anywhere, which is great.
Yeah, but this is one thing they also mentioned, is that when you're on a roof, there's almost always going to be another roof that you can snipe that area from. So it's not like one person can pick one cover area and hold down that whole part of the town, because that's how it is right now. There's certain places where you go, someone will sit up on the roof, and unless you're willing to run up that whole place, it's really hard to shoot them. With the 3 apartments right next to each other, if you think about it, there's a divider right in the middle of those. So unless you're right in that one section facing the one from the opposite, there's not much else you can do there. These are much more open to where you can see onto the roofs of a couple other buildings at once.
Yep.
And they're not just all in a row.
And on this one I'm showing right now, you can actually jump across it and jump into the other building. So if you're holding down a building and you're watching the stairs, well, I got some news for you. Somebody can just hop across the roof from the other building. So instead of
they said they're going to be boarding a lot of these up. So not all of these windows will be open. So there will be a couple of them open, and you can jump down. So that'll give it a little bit less of a risk, because here, when you're running across and there's 10 windows, you're not knowing which one someone's hiding behind. They'll take away some of those options.
Yeah, and this is actually Cranberry. And the reason you can tell it's Cranberry is there's 3 bridges that go across a river, and then there's a big wall on the northern side of the city. And actually, I can show that to you right here. So this is Cranberry. You've got some houses and subdivisions down here. You've got 3 bridges, and then you've got some type of wall divider over on that side. That you have to go up. So Cranberry seems to be a little more, it seems like they could have set it up a little more industrially. I don't think they did, but it looks like they could have, with especially having the water right there. Because typically, at least, in the
the north side's very different. I mean, you got a subdivision along the south, and then, I mean, it's pretty much city along the north. So I'm sure that there's some industrial up on that north side. It's kind of hard to see now.
But the interesting thing, what I would have thought they should have done is, if you look at how cities were set up 100 years ago, companies and factories were all on the water, because that was how boats transported stuff back and forth, and so on and so forth. So it's kind of interesting that they didn't show the whole city of Cranberry, but I think it would have been cool to put a bunch of industrial stuff right on the water, because that would make sense. That's realistic.
And they may expand upon that in the future. And I think a lot of it, they didn't want to show off everything. Of course, they can't show off everything, but they were encouraging people to get on the test servers and play it at night. To kind of go around. This will be interesting for the King of the Kill. How many people are just going to be running around and not really focusing on winning the game?
Yeah, right here. Me, I will not be worrying about playing the game. One quick thing about the test server. So it should be live tonight. If you're watching this live, it should be live later. If you're watching this on YouTube later, this is what they're planning on doing. This Greg, who is their PR guy, we've had him on the show before. He kind of yelled into the stream that it's only the test server map Z2 is only going to be live on the weekends. So Friday, Saturday, Sunday, like how they tested the Ignition game mode and Skirmish, how it was a Friday, Saturday, Sunday. They're going to be doing that for Z2. So
and that gives them some time throughout the week to kind of make adjustments and come back and then see how it play tests. So they're really going to be putting a push, because they are putting this into the tournament. So they're really going to be making pushes every week to make sure the playability is as high as possible.
Yeah, so that's the other thing.
So for those 3 days, they'll be collecting statistics, seeing what people say, and then during the week they'll be making the changes and then rolling it out again. So you probably will see an update to the test server, which is how this should be all the time. We'll be doing a test server. Why not have? Do you think this is going forward? They will start just doing test servers on the weekends, which makes more sense to me.
Yeah, it does. And case in point, Brian, there was stuff that wasn't working in the test stream, which we'll have a link to. That is working on an internal version. They've already got a more working version of that they're only using internally. And the test server's been on it came out Wednesday, I believe. Yep. Wednesday night is when they pushed a 3 gigabyte update. So I don't see why, if they do a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, get a whole bunch of information back, that they'll have Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday to work on the map, and then even if they did it every other week, that they pushed like a decent sized patch, that I'd be fine with that too. But as long as they're pushing updates. And now here's the other thing. If anybody from Daybreak is listening, I'm sure they're not. Please keep us in the loop with what you're doing. I would love to see patch notes. They've done like 3 updates since they put the test server in. Obviously, they didn't tell us the test server was coming out, so they didn't release patch notes. But I would really like to see what's going in on the test server. They already do test server notes, but sometimes they're not super descriptive. So that would be a nice thing to have, is what is actually going on.
Yeah, what are you changing? And that's the thing, is if they do it just for the 3 days, like there's going to be a very set, like, here's what we rolled out before we turned the test servers back on for the weekend.
Yeah.
Like they can roll these updates out since it's not constantly being live. It's not like they're having to do immediate fixes.
No.
Unless something goes wrong, right after they start it. This is something that, okay, test servers are getting ready to go back up. Let's roll out the patch notes of what's been done this week.
Exactly. So that's what's going on with that. Other than that, Brian, by the way, like you mentioned, Z2 will be the H1Z1 Invitational map, which is taking part at TwitchCon 2016, which is September 30th to October 2nd. So if we look at this is
3 months,
and you said this, I was thinking it. You said it. This gives them a deadline. They have to have a working, playable, and pretty much bug-free H1Z1 map, because they're going to look like a bunch of buffoons if this thing is out on Twitchcon.
This is going to be broadcast. So if somebody is driving a vehicle and it drops down, underneath a road that's, they haven't filled in, to kind of like what happened in the beginning of the stream.
Yeah.
I mean, they were going down the road where the ground actually drops out, and so they went underneath the road and they came out. Like that happening in their big tournament would be really embarrassing. And what if someone took advantage of that? You could stand beneath that and shoot people, and they wouldn't be able to see you underneath that road. Like this is something that they have to get fixed. It cannot be in a tournament level where money is on the line, having little things like that in the map. So they're going to have to really clean it up. And so this gives us an idea. This should be pretty cleaned up by 3 months from now. I mean, this should be near complete.
Yeah, and to be honest, I would say they're at, would you say 70%? Would you meet me at 70% of the way?
No, I think they're more like 60%.
Okay.
I mean, a little bit lower, just because there's a lot of road things to fill in. There's a lot of objects to play still.
By the way, this is when they go underground. They're right now driving under the ground and then pop back up on the other side. So,
and that's what happens when you go on. Let's say there's a 3D object. If they haven't rendered the other side of it, like you just see out of it like that. So. This is what would happen. That's a perfect example of what would happen if you went into water right now. If they made water deeper, you see how that was?
Yeah.
That's what it would look like. And that's part of the problem. They haven't gone in and made that water. And so that's why they don't do it. But, this is something they've got to fix all those things, get it polished. And I can tell, like with the roads, they're trying to automate things more. And maybe that's what is happening. Maybe that's why there's masses of things aren't done, because maybe they're trying to make it, because they should automate this much stuff as possible. As many of these things as possible.
Well, the roads are done. They're just not, the terrain is above them. So the roads are, they just have to, they said it was a render issue with how the terrain was rendering.
Because there was one place they showed where the road, like they showed and like, oh, hey, look, the road is like right below the surface.
Yeah, actually right here. Right at the start of the stream, where those light posts, there's roads on either side of this, but it's just grass because the terrain. There was a few rendering errors, and they show another one here. There's like this weird dip into the ground, but there's just rendering errors from how the.
And I would be surprised if they couldn't go through and write a script that says, okay, there's a road here. Make sure that the dirt is not above.
Well, they don't even need to write a script. It's just a render issue. It's just how they're rendering it. I would assume
they're still shaping. They're still shaping some of that stuff. Like if you see where he runs and there's like a drop off on the right and the left, that's going to be a little bit bridge that's there. Maybe with a walk path underneath. And so they're still forming some of this land.
Yeah.
So I think this is still going to be, it's still a work in progress. And like I think with those roads, that since they put them all out there, I think they just need to automate a little bit to where it's like, okay, let's fix this, because otherwise they're going to have to go by hand and fix that, and they just don't have time for that.
Exactly.
So I think they're still go through and automating some of this stuff.
Yeah. So that is I think almost everything, Brian. I don't know if you have anything else.
Majority is Z2. No, I didn't see anything else, and I didn't hear them say anything else that really stood out. All this is pretty new. The layout, we've talked about that. So I didn't hear them say anything else. So I was like, oh, I didn't know that before.
Yeah. So just finishing this up here, we'll just do one more quick recap of what is actually going on with Z2. So Z2 is a 10 by 10 kilometer map. It'll be an 8 by 8 playable map. The current Z1 map is an 8 by 8 with a 6 by 6 playable. So it's added 2 kilometers to the map. which is great. It gives you some more space, and it gave them obviously more room to put stuff into the map. It's coming to the test servers today. The main city, which is called Pleasant Valley, is double the size of Pleasant Valley from Z1, and there are 61 points of interest according to this stream at this point. So that is, that's Z2. Do you any final remarks here from you, Brian?
No, just make sure our show is going to be on Monday this week, right?
But normally,
normally it's on Tuesdays, 7 o'clock Eastern, Tuesday nights. This week we are doing it one day early. I think is that your work schedule?
Yeah, I have to work all day on Tuesday, but yep.
So that's something where just make sure this coming week, if you're listening to this and we haven't done our show yet, make sure you show up on Monday. Normally, if this is your first time checking us out, Tuesday nights, 7 o'clock Eastern, right here on Twitch.
Yep, and what we do is we had some questions in chat from some new people. What do we cover on the show? And it's not just an H1Z1 show. It's an H1Z1. It's a survival podcast. We talk about H1Z1. We talk about Ark, Miscreated. We talk about pretty much any survival game that
the
people
Forest.
recommend. The Forest. We talked about so much stuff recently. The list just goes on and on and on. Where can people find you online if they want to get in touch with you, Brian?
Yeah, if you want to find me on Twitter at Boise Computer, or if you want to go check out my blog, Bite of Tech, that's BITE of tech.com. Go to our infectionpodcast.com website. On there we have our TeamSpeak information. We have our Steam group, which has a very large number of people in there if you want to find some people to play with. And we also have our Discord. I always forget the name of it. Discord, so there's a link right on the right that it is something that you have to have an invite to, but if you click that link, it actually is an invite link on the website, and it'll let you join our Discord. We have a decent number of people in there all the time, so there's a nice chat channel. You don't have to be in a voice channel the whole time. So if you're just going to want to come hang out, chat with people without having to be on camera or be using your microphone, it's a great place to come check out. So come and join us.
Awesome. Brian, thank you so much. I want to thank everybody for coming out to our H1Z1 Z2 wrap-up stream. Of course, you can subscribe to our podcast on our website, infectionpodcast.com. It'll work in any podcast app. Of course, we've got our YouTube channel. It's infectionpodcast.com/YouTube. We've got Twitter. We're followers on Twitch. We've got pretty much every social media out there except for MySpace, which should be a non-issue.
I'm sure we'd be fine with that.
Yeah, we should be fine without that. So guys, thank you for coming out to the live stream. We'll see you Tuesday for Infection, the Survival Podcast. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next time. Have a great weekend and enjoy the test server. We'll see you later.